When the U.S. declared independence from Britain, the young nation was in no position to challenge England's navy. In 1776, England had the most formidable navy in the world. In 1775, the U.S. Navy comprised 7 vessels. The U.S. lacked adequate resources during the conflict to challenge the British war chest. Join us in this Liber-Tea episode as we discuss privateers' important role in the American Revolution. During the American Revolution, it was clear that the young U.S. was ill-equipped to challenge its colonial master. While Congress established a navy at the commencement of the Revolutionary War, it had a minute impact on the war's outcome. Thousands of Americans in pursuit of fortune and freedom played a critical but unrecognized role in the continent's endeavor for freedom. The Continental Congress decided to commission over 2,000 privateers to help the war effort. These privateers launched deadly attacks on America's enemies on both sides of the Atlantic. These attacks achieved their intended goal. They severely weakened Britain's public opinion against the war and crippling its economy. Since the Middle Ages, international law permitted belligerent nations to utilize private vessels to attack and plunder enemy ships. Privateers, unlike pirates, conducted their business legally. However, this distinction had little effect on those seafarers who encountered them. They were as bloodthirsty and greedy as those who conducted piracy illegally. Both self-interest and patriotism spurred the privateers who took part in the American Revolution. The war was critical to the British, as they stood to lose a lot if the U.S. would successfully remove itself from the empire. Since the U.S. government could not afford to build a navy capable of rivaling Britain's, they decided to commission privateers who conducted guerrilla-style attacks on British vessels. At the beginning of the Revolution, in the siege of Boston, General George Washington leased pirate ships and used uniformed men to oversee them. In March 1776, Congress authorized private citizens to arm private ships and crews on the enemies of the colonies. Those who wanted letters of marque were required to deposit 5,000 British pound collateral to ensure they did not prey on American ships and did not mistreat prisoners of war. For the members of the Navy, George Washington declared that they would be entitled to 1/3 of the enemy goods they captured. On the other hand, privateers were entitled to keep all the loot they captured during their raids. This financial incentive, coupled with patriotic obligations, inspired both patriotism and the spirit of capitalism. This call to action was very successful, as many whalers, merchant ships, and fishing vessels were converted into makeshift warships. By the end of 1776, hundreds of privateers were playing the West Indies and the Caribbean. According to John Adams, during this period, America was rife with imaginations about privateering, and in the course of the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress issued over 1,700 commissions. American states also issued thousands of letters of marque. Privateering became so popular that Congress was forced to print and distribute pre-authorized commissions. Vessels of all sizes entered the privateering business, including the 26-gun, 600-ton vessel Caesar of Boston. However, the increase of privateers did not go well with some Navy commanders, such as John Paul Jones. This is because privateering lured many members of the Navy with the hopes of making great fortunes. Privateers also made it difficult for the Navy to negotiate with England regarding the swapping of prisoners of war. Many privateers died in the process of challenging the formidable British Navy. Few people who sponsored and invested in the privateering business made fortunes. Normally, investors and shipowners had a right to half the goods seized from enemy ships. The remaining half was divided among the crew. During an operation, privateers prevailed over the enemy by making them believe that opposition was futile. When the enemy did not bulge, Vicious battles ensued with unpredictable results. American privateers managed to cripple British commerce despite the high-risk nature of privateering. By the war's end, American privateers had cost the British government damage worth $18 million. The American economy was bolstered by privateering. Privateering frustrated British merchants as it caused a shortage of commodities. The shortage of goods caused prices to skyrocket. As such, British consumers were angered by the activities of American privateers. Britain's Parliament did not recognize the authority of the Continental Congress. British parliamentarians argued the Continental Congress lacked authority under international law to issue letters of marque. British authorities viewed American privateers as pirates. In 1777, England's Parliament enacted the Pirate Act, which allowed British authorities to hold American privateers indefinitely without trial and deny them the rights due to prisoners of war. The act also curtailed British authorities from engaging in negotiations to swap prisoners who were privateers. Over 13,000 American prisoners died in English prisons. However, despite Britain's harsh tactics, privateers forged on to deliver devastating blows to British merchant ships and the Navy. In 1778, privateers conducted over 200 strikes on British vessels. In James Vollo's Blue Water Patriots, he notes that the news of the attacks delighted Benjamin Franklin tremendously. At the time, Benjamin Franklin was stationed in Paris, where he issued Irish privateers with commissions. Additionally, he encouraged American privateers to sell their plundered goods in French ports to strain the diplomatic relations between France and Britain. The French and the British had always had an uneasy peace. According to Benjamin, the war could not be complete unless the French entered it. By the war's end, the Continental Navy had captured over 250 British vessels, while American privateers had captured over 2,300 ships. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you have enjoyed it and learned something new. Like, share, and subscribe to Liber-Tea for more.